thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you and appreciate you taking the time. We'll get started now. And unfortunately, this is our last webinar of the year. But
Oh,
the good news is we've saved the best for last, because
thank you.
today we are talking about how to scale your content team's impact with AI. And we're talking to May Habib at Writer, who is CEO. And this is just such a fantastic topic. I'm so excited about it because there's immediate ROI for what we're going to talk about today with anyone who works in content. You're going to come away from today really understanding how AI like Writer can just have a dramatic effect on your content team and operations. So I'm going to start off with a couple of quick housekeeping slides and announcements, and then we'll turn it over to May. So my name is Mike Kaput. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm the Chief Content Officer here at Marketing AI Institute, and I have the privilege to be joined by May Habib, CEO at Writer. And May is going to walk us through exactly how Writer's AI gives your content team superpowers, essentially. And the way we're going to do that, the format, is that today's webinar is one of our AI in action webinars. And these are designed to be educational demos of AI technology. So we're actually going to take a look at how Writer works. We're going to get a really good idea of how real AI technology functions and how it can help you get results. So I'm super excited. Before we dive in, I've just got a couple slides coming up here for some institute related things. If you are unfamiliar and new to the audience of Marketing AI Institute, we are a media education event and consulting company that makes AI approachable and actionable for marketing leaders. So we've spent the last 5+ years at marketingaiinstitute.com publishing hundreds of different resources and tools for marketers and business leaders to actually get started understanding and using artificial intelligence. And a couple that are highlighted here that you can find on the website are our recent book that we published called Marketing Artificial Intelligence, AI Marketing in the Future of Business, which is an awesome read. You can learn more about it on the website. And then we also have a free 2020 State of Marketing and Sales AI report. So in partnership with a company named Drift, we did some industry leading research from hundreds of marketers and salespeople on how they're understanding and adopting AI. And if you could just move us one slide forward, thanks, May. So the last thing I want to hit before we turn it over to May is, I know I said it's the last live webinar of the year, but we thankfully have all the other webinars on demand on our website. So if you can use the link you see on your screen, bit.ly/marketing-AI-webinars, you can go find webinars on a ton of different educational topics to help you get started with artificial intelligence. And there's tons of great stuff from dozens of different AI experts and vendors. So please go check those out as well. And then one last note before I turn it over to May, we are taking questions throughout the webinar. So please use the chat window, the Q&A window to ask any questions you have of May or about anything she's presenting. Kathy McPhillips on our team is behind the scenes fielding those questions. So at the end, we'll do some in-depth Q&A with May where we will try to answer as many of those questions as possible. So don't be shy dropping those into the chat. Now, without further ado, May, take it away.
Thank you so much, Mike. I love what you all are doing and really excited to speak with the audience. Like you all, we've been in this space before it was hot. And so that has given us, along with our customers, just like a real head start on the issues that now the mainstream is going to really grapple with. And we have, from the beginning, worked with customers who really care about content and brand. And so a lot of like the ideas of scaling, like inherently you want to scale with quality, and the customers who like are early adopters believe that the most. And so I'm very excited to like assuage people's fears around how scaling and quality can go hand in hand. And we've learned it from the very best. The problem we are solving is one that a lot of folks listening are going to be familiar with, like everything from I don't have any content for like these 10 really important terms. We're publishing like twice a month, and I know that is not like meeting the threshold of what my audience needs to see from me. Um, the messaging is outdated across the site. Like sales is saying something different than what is on my homepage. The people contributing to our help center aren't great writers, even though they really know the product. Like we hear these day in and day out. It has nothing to do with AI. Nobody comes in and says, I want GPT. Nobody says, how do I operationalize a large language model? People have actual business problems, and we're using technology to solve those business problems. And when you frame it that way, it's so much easier to get adoption and really bring your organization along to a future that looks like this. What we have learned from the best teams is when content can be an enabler of growth versus this like siloed function where I put in a quarter and I get a pinball or whatever, like things change pretty dramatically. And so, you can imagine these are all the sub functions of marketing, but we work with customer support teams, we work with technical writing teams, we work with HR, we work with internal operations groups. Like, no matter who it is, people tend to have content as a function, and people who need content as these like parallel teams. And what we have seen to be the most transformational is enabled with AI, content really becoming this service that powers all these programs. So how do we do that? Right? We are taking people's best performing content and their brand guidelines, and we're producing these libraries of templates that people can use to really operationalize the content types that they're producing the most frequently. So we're gonna talk about what this means. And for the people who've got professional writers on their team, like that means everything that they work on, right? The impact of that is multiplied manyfold, because you can use that to train these custom models that can produce more of that. And those professional writers can move on to building other things. We give everybody the same writing rules. So we are a Chrome extension, we're Word plugins, we're Figma plugins, we're Contentful plugins. Anywhere where people are working on content, copy, and comms, they're going to get the same editing and the same generations as they would have gotten using the web application. And that's important because like scale and quality have to go together. And if everybody is writing and representing the brand in the same way, the impact to that customer experience is really, really profound. So people love these sets of features. Not all content needs to be creative. And actually, there's a real big body of work that companies want to be the exact same every single time. Your messaging, your boilerplates, your value props. And so all of that controlled language goes into a part of Writer called snippets. And we help people use the right snippets in the right time, depending on where they're writing. So really, really important part of the product. And then finally, we put all of this guidance into a style guide for words, right? This whole time as digital teams, we have been kind of obsessed with like visual guidelines, when all of the research shows that it's the words you put in front of somebody that impacts whether they trust the brand and whether they take action. And so this is a tool that keeps all of people's controlled language, their brand voice guidelines, their messaging in one place. And it's shareable. You don't have to be using Writer to be able to access your team's style guide. And all of this together is producing real business impact. And this is the benefit of having, been in this space before. It was sexy. Like, this is not a hammer looking for a nail, right? This is like real business impact as a result of solving real problems. The amazing team at Emotive, very small marketing team, using Writer, they've been able to double their search traffic in 1 month, which is incredible. You might imagine, Mike, we see a lot of Google Analytics dashboards. Anyone using us for SEO, we are constantly checking in on how they are doing. And not everybody wants to be written up in a case study because it's still a bit sensitive, but the way we enable people to do AI and SEO and top of funnel together is really, really magical. We focus on that information gain. We're going to talk about it, and the results speak for themselves. For help content, being able to do a lot more with a lot less. Carl's team is like 3 or 4 people, and they were able to 5x the amount of content output. Again, scale and quality have to go together. And then Brooke is an incredibly famous brand marketer, and has done incredible things at Attentive. And she says like they would not have been able to scale the brand without Writer making sure everything was on brand. So this is real solutions to real problems, and of course a lot of customer love along the way. Folks who are brilliant writers for a living really loving the product. So excited to walk people through the very tactical ways they can use Writer. So ideation. How are people using Writer for ideation? And I want to walk through each of these, a real life customer example, and we're going to go back and forth between slides and the product. Ideation. So these banners are the bane of people's existence, because a company like Intuit needs to produce hundreds of variations of these banners whenever they're doing big campaigns. And you can see this banner, you've got bookkeeping without the busy work, then a subhead, then a CTA. This header needs to be a certain number of characters. This subheader needs to be a certain number of characters. And this CTA needs to start with a non-gerund verb. And when you're producing like hundreds of these variations, this task can get quite tedious. And so how do you use Writer to help to help with this? So I'm going to go into Writer, and I'm going to go into start with co-write. What we did for the Intuit team is super exciting. So they call those boxes hello boxes, and they've got a workflow where let's say you're in one of the Intuit products and you are seeing a banner. It's not going to be for the product you're in because you're a user of that product already. It's going to be hyping another, it's going to be promoting another product. And so and the writers work on all of them. So what they've done is they've built a custom template in Writer, and we've got a bunch of out of the box templates. They're almost always customized a little bit to a customer's needs. That's the NLP plus the LLM together. And then it's also trained on examples. And so at Intuit, their writers can go in here and they can choose. I want banners for QuickBooks payments, and I want the key value prop here to be just instant payments. I want that kind of value prop to be in my banner ideas. And they click generate. And what we have done in the background on building these templates was get different examples of their copy, right? And so now they are getting different examples, right, of the QuickBooks banner copy, and it is already complying to the character counts that they need for the Figma file. So a really exciting and very specific use case for ideation. Number 2, drafting. We talk about Writer in long form content using these words, drafting, because what you are using AI for is really being able to take your ideas, right, and draft it into the long form content that you want to publish. And so how does that work? I'm going to go into co-write, and I am going to work on a blog post. And with Writer, you're not putting in a headline and getting 1,500 words of sort of like Frankenstein content. We are going to make sure user error is very low. There's a lot of prompt engineering behind the scenes in this template. And let's do the ultimate guide. Let's write together the ultimate guide to hiring a fractional CFO. I was just talking to John, our fractional CFO. So this is top of mind for me. So ultimate guide to hiring a fractional CEO, and the SEO keywords, this is optional, fractional CFO. Let's say I am we have a lot of fintech customers. Let's say I am an accounting firm like a Xero or a QuickBooks, and this is going top of funnel on my blog. Writer is going to walk you through an outline next, right? The same way that you would do this if you are writing from scratch. What is the outline of this piece? So I'm gonna zoom in here a little bit so you can see. So role of fractional CFO, benefits, the process, what to look for, questions to ask a fractional CFO. So I love all of these, right? If I wanted to add a new section, right, I absolutely could. And I'm going to add a section because I'm a vendor, right? I'm QuickBooks. I'm going to add top accounting software platforms to use with a fractional CFO. Okay. If I wanted to change these around, I could. So if I wanted to do questions, I mean, this is all very logical. Role, benefits, process. If I wanted to do process ahead of benefits, I could, but I want benefits and then process. Then I go into key points. This is where information gain happens. The unique points of view of your brand, the statistics, the quotes that only you have, right? This is what makes a post a winning, from an SEO perspective, post. And we've got customers who've customized this even to the H3. So each one of these actually goes in, right? And you've got custom points. And this is how we solve a lot of the very long range logic problems that generative tech has, where it's basically after the second paragraph. And what you are doing here as a writer is making sure all of the points are logical. First of all, there will occasionally be 10 to 15% of the time, point 3 in this main point is maybe a little overlapping with point 4 in the second point, right? And so you want to make sure the entire piece is very meaty, right? Like, you as a writer, you're not going to revisit a subtopic later on in any depth, right? You might reference it, but it won't be in any depth. And so that is what happens at this level. And customers are spending 20 minutes, right, at this level, going through and making sure, right, that like their points and their specific ideas are coming in here. So what to look for: experience with accounting software platforms. Okay, I love this, writer, but I'm actually going to revisit it because I added a full section on it. So I'm going to take that out because I don't want to talk about it in this point. I'm going to wait till the very bottom. And then questions: experience, what account? This is great because I am going to actually like put in my vendor here. Strategies, advise on equity compensation plans. Okay, I'm going to take that out. I think that's too specific. Okay. Writer is, for this point, has gone down the logic path of my fractional CFO choosing my vendor for me, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about prompt engineering and how I could have prevented this. So I don't like any of these. I actually want Writer to regenerate all those points. Okay. The beautiful thing about generative tech is literally just like running it again. Sometimes we'll give you a whole other set of ideas. So we do these 45-minute AI whispering workshops where we help people really understand, what it is that we are doing. It did it again, but this is, I would be rewriting these, right? So I would say, and these are way too many points for a closing paragraph. So I want to say here, fractional CFO should be proficient using accounting software platforms. Yep. Top accounting software tools for collaboration with a fractional CFO. And then how to learn more about QuickBooks. I'm QuickBooks, right? And then generate draft. So this is how drafting works in Writer. Very different than how it works in other platforms. Like, we are training people to really get like the journalistic meat of what it is that you are writing and getting it into an outline like structure. And so it's not instant, right? Like, when you're doing this right, this is taking 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but it's not taking 6 hours. And a lot of our customers will have open their brief, right? Oops. Hold on, let me Let me refresh that.
Yeah, and I think, May, this is a good time to reiterate what you just
There we go.
said. And I think sometimes people look at tools like these and they try out at 1 or 2 tests and say, oh, well, that didn't make any sense, or that output wasn't useful. And
Yep.
that invalidates in their eyes the tool. Well, one, the tools do require some training and some prompting to get right. But two, you don't necessarily need to create a blog post at a single click of a button to capture immense value. If you dropped,
Right.
like you said, 6 hours to 30 minutes, extrapolate that across teams and tell me the ROI on that isn't massive.
100%, 100%. So this is our post now, and you can use Writer to draft really anything. And I want to demonstrate one thing that you could use to really draft quickly. So I'm going to show our keep writing feature. So I'm going to say that I'm going to use the exact same prompt we just did, right? But I'm going to switch it up a bit. I'm going to say generate a first paragraph of a post, a blog post about fractional CFOs, about considerations when hiring a fractional CFO. Okay, Command Enter, or I click keep writing. Okay, now watch this. I'm going to say, generate a first paragraph of a blog post about considerations when hiring a fractional CFO for SMB companies. I've now narrowed in the draft. Okay, when hiring SFO for SMB companies, keeping in mind regulations in Australia, right? Just to demonstrate, like, right? And we've now gone more of a regulatory angle. Let's do written in an informal tone. Okay, now let's say this is still not informal enough for me, right? I actually can click rewrite and I can shorten it even more. Okay. Now let's do written in Valley Girl tone. Just want to demonstrate just how responsive to natural language. Right, see, I didn't like that actually. That's not Valley Girl at all. I'm going to do this again. Written in the tone of a Gen Z Valley Girl. It's totally fine to hit enter again. Don't love it. When hiring a fractional SFO, I'm going to take out SMB companies. That might be too confusing. Written in, oh, I spelled tone wrong. There we go. All right. The writer doesn't want to write in a Gen Z Valley Girl tone, but
That
you
may
get
be a
the
good
idea.
feature.
It might be a good thing. Yeah. It is really sensitive to, right, the kind of prompt that is in here. And what we've done essentially, what a template does, right? Everybody on this phone, right, on this call right now will become the vector of AI in their organizations. What templates do is basically reduce user error when prompting, because then we've written the prompt and those inputs, right, are basically ad libs from your user that we put in the prompt. And so you don't have to be as good at the prompt sensitivity. So that's drafting. Now editing. What do we mean by AI editing? Everybody on this call has seen and probably has pages that look like this as their style guide, things that they have written internally, right? Where the only people who remember what is in the style guide is the person who wrote it, and they probably forget what's in there anyway. And a style guide is so important to getting everybody writing the same way, but it can be such a burden. And so what we have done is used AI to be able to ingest. I mean, Accenture style guide is like 300 pages. We will take that 60-page burden, that 300-page burden, and we will get it into Writer, right? It's a series of checks and check boxes. There are custom rules too for things that you do that nobody else does, and we need to write a custom rule for it. And we turn that into suggestions on writing that pop up anywhere where people are writing. There's a lot of AI and ML that goes into this to make sure we're not over flagging, we're not under flagging. And with this type of AI, you're helping people make sure that they are on brand and writing well. Like, there's going to be content where AI takes the lead and human support. There's going to be content that's better done with people writing it first and AI supporting. And like, our platform is built with that understanding, that both the editing and the drafting all have to really be together in one package. But sometimes AI is taking the lead, and sometimes people are. So that is editing. On distribution, how are people people using Writer for distribution? You are writing a blog post, or you are writing an ebook, and you now need to get that out there. And if it is like the big editorial project of the month, you're going to go in and you're going to like handwrite every single word. If you just refreshed 100 pieces and you've got a whole social calendar, nobody wants to write 100 LinkedIn posts or 100 Twitter threads for that. And so this is where you're using Writer. And this is a great example. Our customers over at Elevest are huge. They're just mavens at social. And they put in their article title here in a template, and they automatically get a meta description, push notifications, LinkedIn and Twitter share copy for their account and their CEO separately, trained on that body of work that their people have done already. And if we go back to what we all just wrote together in the where is it? Our ultimate guide to hiring the fractional CFO, and you click here on highlights, you're automatically on the left gonna get a meta description that is built for best practices, is ready for your CMS. You're gonna get a summary, right? You can send this to email. You can send this to your sales team for them to promote a post with their prospects. You're gonna get LinkedIn automatically copy for your LinkedIn, and you're going to get a Twitter copy. And people have customized this as, I want a Twitter thread. I want LinkedIn trained on these posts that have done really well for me. I want the summary to include X, Y, Z. Meta description is most folks find our meta descriptions to lead to higher open rates than theirs, so that we rarely end up training this one. But that distribution copy really helps get content shipped and get it out the door. The last one I want to talk about is repurposing, and there are so many different ways that this can manifest itself. We've got customers taking big ebooks, turning them into blog posts, customers taking blog posts, turning them into ebooks, right? Like, whatever it is that gets your business moving, we can help you do. And I want to walk you all through, and we'll be back in the product to do this. An amazing customer called Do Stuff. They're a media company. They're in a dozen cities in the US, journalists who really find out like the best of things that are happening in a city. And they're writing these really involved, beautiful posts about all the things that are happening. And then they got to create the newsletters for it. And like, that can be a pain. And so I want to show you the template that they built that is just like really, really awesome. I have it started here already. I want to show you how you would get to it, and then we'll go in there. So this is their template library, and I've got a bunch of different templates in here, but these would only be your templates. And so they have built a template that mirrors their workflow when they're building a newsletter. So their newsletter has an introduction section where one of the pieces that they've written, they go in depth on it. Then they have a just announced section, which is a bunch of bullets. At least 2 things have to go there, but if they want another section, they can. Then they do another deep dive on a guide. They call this, it's a guide style. And then there's another set of bullets on just kind of what to do. And so with Writer, what they're doing is they're literally pulling in just the URLs, right? And so I'm going to go in here and let's do another one together. Let me move that away. Let's see, we pulled in Hanukkah, Shack, Nutcracker. All right, so we need 3 more things to do. So let's do what looks fun here to you, Mike.
How about the
wilderness.
yeah, perfect.
That looks
That's the
fun.
one I was gonna pick.
Yeah. Do you have kids? I feel like this is
No,
all about.
not yet, but I would go to this.
I would
So-
go. Oh, Dr. Seuss. Okay. Austin, is anyone on the call from Austin? You guys have got a lot of things going on right now. Dr. Seuss, and then let's see. Oh, Beauty and the Beast cocktail reception. Sounds kind of kinky, honestly, but let's do that. Not safe for work. Okay. Generate content. So everything on the left, right, they have customized in terms of this is the input I want to get from my user. And what you're going to see in terms of that newsletter coming out on the right, is trained on their content. We've got a question here on while it loads, customized for highly scientific content. Yeah, Christine, I mean, SentinelOne is an incredible customer, and that is like super technical cybersecurity content. We've got United Healthcare as actually our largest customer, and that is like very specific medical content. So check this out. What we have done is write this in their style. This is how they write their newsletters. We have gone in real time and crawled these URLs and brought it in to this format. And so they literally take this and they can go into MailChimp with very, very minimal editing. So that is the name of the game, is like to use the UI to really get to a place where you're producing content that doesn't need to be edited as much, especially for that distribution and repurposing, right? The juice needs to be worth the squeeze if you're, relying on Writer, especially for the shorter form content. So that's what I had for you all today. Like we have literally a community that has built thousands of different examples. And the upshot is this like absolutely real acceleration for writers. And in so many cases, it is a lot more than this. People are using the API. Like once a template is like spitting out everything they want all the time, they're automating that API and they're getting things like product descriptions, page SKUs, landing page copy, ad copy, like feeding directly into their other systems. And so I would love to leave you with this, right? A style guide, like really knowing and this is this is not just editorial and writing style guide. This is like your points of view to your audience, your head terms, your key messages, your boilerplate. That plus thinking about your content flows in this structured way, plus some training data, like that is the promise of AI fulfilled, is not hype when the content is coming out. So thank you, everybody. Please connect with us. We post on LinkedIn often, really just all the learnings from the community out there. If you go to content.community, you can actually join our Slack group, where we've got a bunch of incredible champions in there sharing advice. We've got that great event on the 15th next week. We'll send information to everybody and lots of sessions on how CMOs are using Writer and things that they expect to come up in the world of AI next year. So thanks all.
And May, that was an awesome walkthrough. I think it's really cool to be able to just see on the fly, you're coming up with topics with outlines and with prompts that, it's not like it's a predetermined thing. You're typing those in real time, and we're getting those kinds of outputs, and it's really, really impressive. I'm going to dive in. We have a ton of questions, so I'll try to kind of structure these kind of in a logical pattern here, but just for everyone's reference, during the presentation, May answered 2 quick questions that we did have, which is, Is it only in English, or are there other languages? We have other languages coming in 2023, it sounds like. And this question is related to one I had. So Christine had asked, can it be customized for highly scientific content? And May, you had answered that you have plenty of technical clients, very, very tech heavy clients. So it seems like that is no problem. Kind of rewinding a sec, my question is, you showed a bunch of clients at the beginning, customers of yours, and it looks like a very wide array of industries. I assume Writer can be used for most industries, B2B, B2C.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the types of templates that they end up using are different, right? And people asked about the team plan versus the you know, the train templates, etc. Let me share my screen again to answer that question, Mike. The out-of-the-box templates, you go to writer.com right now, you're going to get 15,000 words of generations a month on our out-of-the-box templates, which are going to be able to do a lot of what we just talked about. The ability to really hone in on your brand voice, on your data, proprietary information that's not out there, right? Like the vast majority of people, when they're building newsletters and emails, like that's not hitting the .com. And so, you know, even though we've got like a more real-time way of building our foundational model, like it's still not going to know who your head of marketing is right this very second, right? And so that's where the training comes in. We can train on proprietary data that is what is going to make sure that like what comes out of Writer is ready for prime time. And so, you know, the industry question, the B2B versus B2C questions, you know, they're kind of moot because like we are getting way more customized than that. Like it is your information. Now, for folks who are on the free trial or on the team plan, the $18 a month plan, you guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
The way that you can try to customize, right, without any training and proprietary data is through the prompt. And so this is where, you know, we're going to start doing right now. We do the AI whispering workshops just for our enterprise customers, but we're going to start to open those up. This is where that training comes in. I was doing something with a customer earlier, and let's do, I'm going to repeat that example so you guys can get an idea. So write a product description for a holiday little black dress for the budget conscious shopper, right? And this was a big e-commerce company that has lots of different brands, right? And we're gonna hit Command Enter. Okay, so you can see, right? For the high status fashionista. Okay, a little literal, right? But like you definitely see the difference. And so you can use the prompt to actually get a little bit more specific than you would otherwise. Let's try this. Written in a Valley Girl tone of voice. I'm going to try this again. Let's see what this type of content. So a bit more like playful and informal.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and even like you said, you know, even if your first pass is very literal, I mean, there's that content looks really interesting to me. It would certainly give me multiple ideas on how to spin off potentially messaging around that.
Yep.
So one question that came up is broadly kind of where is this content coming from? Is there any concern around plagiarism here or anything like that?
Cool. So these are really thorny problems. And even when it's not literal plagiarism, it's never literal plagiarism. You literally program the thing so it literally cannot plagiarize. The ideas can be similar, right? And so like, even if it's not literal plagiarism, people really should be worried about plagiarism that is in a gray area. And the way that our customers really consider their AI adoption to be low risk is that it is a 99% weight towards their actual data that has gone in to train Writer. So like the foundational model is based on open source data, right? It is like a big data like ocean. And what it comes out, right, even on the team plan, right, is never plagiarized. But even if there are only a few words, right, gone, like that is maybe like it is the letter of the law, right? But like for us, that's not enough for ethical marketers. And so this is where when you're doing things at scale, right, we really want to make sure that you are training on your own data. We've had prospects come in and say, look, I don't love my brand voice. Can you train on my competitors' data?
Hmm.
And we say, no, we'll help you come up with your own brand voice. Okay, let's do that together. But we're not doing that. So, you know, we as a community really need to come together and put these ethical guardrails around what we are doing.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. And that's good that, companies like Writer are leading the charge on ethical use of these tools. I really think it's an important conversation for the industry at large.
Yep, agree.
So what's really cool about your presentation is I think it's really spurred in people in the comments here, kind of ideas for use cases. Can it do this? Can it do that? And one interesting one I think I know the answer to, but I'll leave it to you, is Allison asks, can this solution help with creating website content? She gets requests from clients to overhaul the content on their website. Sounds like pretty frequently.
Yeah, totally. So, you know, we do a lot of website content, and a lot of customers have built, the folks at Innovation Refunds are just an incredible example. Templates for landing pages, right? And so you've got like a structure that works for you on landing pages. You can build a template that allows you to input, right, just a few pieces of information and automatically get landing page copy as a result. And I'm going to walk you through one such example. And this is, they call them messaging hierarchies at Bill. And so, and it's a very innovative team. You know, when you're like on a product marketing site and it's like small little like header and then a paragraph, right? And then there's three of them, like this is a messaging hierarchy for anyone who's not in product marketing listening. And so like this very specific examples, and you know, at Bill.com, they call it single-minded proposition. What's your SMP? So my SMP for, let's say, a landing page I'm writing is pay invoices instantly, for example. Like I want all of my things in my carousel to be about this. I will generate content that already fits, right, my landing page outline. And so, you know, and they've got this idea of like reasons to believe and then additional reasons to believe. So get paid now, no more waiting, get paid the instant you invoice with early payments, et cetera. And they have three options, right? And the number of options you get, this is also customizable. Of course, if you're using the API, you're going to want one, right? Because it's going to go straight into a CMS. But there's a lot of sophistication around, you know, how you can do that. Now, if an agency and, you know, you're not going to be like doing enterprise writer and customizing for each one, again, I would like recommend going in and just doing this starting from scratch and just, you know, just say like, I wouldn't use keep writing. I would do ask writer anything, because then you'll get the context. And here I will say, I want you to rewrite the landing page copy to be less wordy. Okay, and then I will go, let's go to writer.com. God, I hope you don't think this is wordy because I love it. But let's say, you know, we're gonna just highlight here, okay? I've actually never done this before. So we're learning together, right? Our goal when we train people up is literally just like, get comfortable, being a little uncomfortable, like just being like hands-on keyboard for like an hour with this, you'll already get so much better. So let's generate the content. So we said rewrite the landing page copy to be less wordy. So let's see what Writer does. This is Ask Writers AI anything. It's available on the plan. Oh, I love this. I love it. It's so good. And then again, like rewrite is sort of like micro co-write, right? So I like this, but I want to polish it, right? I like this, but I want it to be even shorter. And these tabs can be customized as well. So like literally Deloitte, the first tab is Deloitte, right? So like when they're writing for their specific use case, this is like chatbot copy, they want it to like sound a bit more like Deloitte, right? And it's not going to be everything that like you can fit your brand voice into, but this is customizable as well, what you put in here.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think to Allison's point, it's like you could plug in any type of website copy here, and it looks like you could really get some value and speed up the process. I actually saw on LinkedIn this morning, I think it was in response to maybe a post you or someone else at Writer had posted. A good friend of mine who is a senior marketer said she used it. It took her 75% less time to do some website page rewrites using the
Yep.
tool. She was blown away by it. I mean, that's just an incredible time savings.
Yep.
So this is a bit of a hot topic and definitely I don't think has a concrete answer yet, but I'm curious about your thoughts around because Google is starting to roll out some kind of maybe AI related copy policies and things like that. It sounds like Writer is, you're not taking Writer's output and just copying and pasting it. You're adding lots of unique style, human context and things like that. But how does this fit into how Google is trying to treat AI generated content?
Google cares that the content is good, and so do we, right? And this is why, we don't sell to people who can't write. You must have great writers on your team. Would love folks to check out our um, we just did a blog post about this and like built a whole framework with partners about this because we
Mm,
care about it so much. If you don't have your house in order, don't even get close. Like it just makes no sense. You're shooting yourself in the foot. And
yep.
so when and where and how, right, is just absolutely critical. You must have drivers in the seat who can evaluate the output, who like know what good looks like and who understand, right, your goals as a brand. And that is critical. And that applies top of funnel, bottom of funnel. You got to have writers in the driver's seat. And when you do, right, when you focus on that information gain, right, what you're actually doing is taking the time you would have spent writing on the article and like you're interviewing one more person, right?
Mm,
You're digging for another stat. You're going to your product team and asking them to like, let you look at customer data and like get something out of there. Like you get to use the time to produce a better article versus, frozen it up. And so I think that's why our customers are getting such incredible SEO results, right? And we
mm,
partner with like the market muses of the world, like
yep.
ClearScopes of the world, like, go and use those tools to get the brief and then come back
Mm.
to Writer to put that in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You definitely had some really concrete organic search results in some of the results you were sharing from customers. So that
Yeah.
seemed to be a pretty resounding endorsement for that approach.
Yeah.
That actually kind of relates to another question I had. So we talked about, time savings, making writers 10x more productive. What are you seeing from your customers when they do free up that kind of time from their content teams? How is it being reallocated? Because I think we sometimes fall into this black and white thinking of like, well, it'll just be done faster, or like we won't need those people. Just not true. You're actually able to do far more and higher value tasks, it sounds like, with the time
Yeah,
you've saved using AI.
totally. AI isn't going to replace jobs. It's going to replace tasks, right?
Mm,
And like we're going to just be like taskmasters, right? Like kind of orchestrating all of this workflow, right, and guiding. Um, I think the reality is none of our customers have ever lost a single headcount as a result of this
mm,
like massive increase in productivity, right? People get to think about the creative things. You think about, we were just talking, Mike, about like how small our mutual marketing teams are,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like when you're posting on LinkedIn, when you're posting social, when you're producing, when it's a day a blog post, right? When you're doing like the nitty gritty every single week, when do you have time to think about the creative stuff? When are you using that? When are you building authentic relationships with people in your industry, right? Like nobody in our customer base who's amplified their productivity has said, I have no use for these people now, right? Like it is, you get to do the stuff that like, you want to do, that you want, that somehow always on the bottom of your to-do list. So you get to use people for much more creative tasks than spitting out push notifications.
That's a really good point. And at least in kind of like you mentioned, our corners of the marketing world, I don't know a single marketer that has said, you know what, this week I did every single thing I really wanted to do this week. I got to every single thing I really wanted to do. So when we have these productivity gains, it's not like everyone's sitting over here twiddling their thumbs. They probably had way too much on their plate to begin with.
100%. One of our e-commerce case studies, a new head of SEO came in and wanted to rewrite literally the entire SKU database, right? Like that would have taken a year and they would have done nothing else, And so like building a model in Writer and then it's done with a single API call, like a much more sane and humane thing to be doing.
Absolutely. So I wanted to, there are a couple questions kind of related to maybe some of the particulars of Writer's plans. So for instance, someone wanted to know, it looked like you had some customized templates, especially in that newsletter example. Could you, we can send out some more information on the exact differences, but could you maybe highlight some of the key differences between I believe there are two major plans?
Yeah. So the enterprise plan lets you put anything you want on that left-handed side. People are putting in URLs. They're uploading files, right? They're dragging and dropping stuff. Now, we've got a big announcement coming next week at that same event on the 15th. So some of that magic is going to come into the team plan. But think of it as like a multimodal approach to content creation in these custom templates that's trained on examples of what you've already done in the arena. So it just gets so tight. So that is on the enterprise plan.
Very cool. And like we mentioned, we'll be sharing the details of that event and some links to that in our follow-ups here to everyone. So we will make sure everyone gets registered for that because that sounds extremely exciting.
Cool. And then there are definitely some questions around the AI and Google policies and the demotion, right? Like we are really, really close to the Google folks and just the fine lines that they talk about and those policy changes. The goal is to have worked through all of the content, right? The goal is not to be publishing content that is that has never doesn't have any of your fingerprints on it. And it's more than fingerprints, right? Like people are really working through that whole output. I actually think like I was talking about this with somebody on LinkedIn, like the example, the analogy and parallels to machine translation are huge, right? Like the fact that machine translation is free means that localization is better, right? Like you get to actually spend your time as a translator transcreating, right? Because the very basic stuff, like actually, right, you can just kind of review a machine translated output for some of it, especially in the high data languages. We know a lot about this space because we started in machine translation. A lot of us at Writer worked together in a previous company. So, we know a lot about this, which is why additional languages are coming to our roadmap. And, there are other prosumer tools out there that talk about being in 36 languages. Like it's way different to actually be in another language. The depth of the quality, right? We want it to match what you would get in English, and we want it to be something just like our English product that like professional writers are benefiting. The same thing in terms of what we do on the translated languages side. So we're excited to be in other languages next year.
Very cool. So as we kind of get to the last couple minutes here, I did want to ask, do you have customers whose partners, agencies, freelancers are using Writer, or are there agencies that are kind of adopting the tool?
Yeah, so we sell directly to brands, and lots of folks invite their agencies in, and actually come up with, like, different pricing models for different types of things that they're doing, or reallocate some of that spend to actually brief writing or like keyword research, etc.
Mm.
So lots of flexibility. You can invite anyone that you want to your instance, and use it that way. That's the primary go to market right now.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know you have very prominent messaging on your site that Writer is the tool for teams. So this is designed from the ground up to be that type of collaborative team tool, not just, a solo operation here.
Yeah. And the goal is to control the language, right? To like really be able to decide like what terms define us, what messaging defines us. And then we're using that, right? We're using that
Mm.
to make sure the content that you are producing follows your guidelines and your style guide.
That's fantastic. May, thank you so much for your time today. This was awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's
Thanks for
just
having me, Mike.
so impactful to have people see in person what AI can actually do. So I
Yeah.
know our audience appreciates it. A ton of great questions. Just as a final reminder, we'll send out the on-demand version of the webinar in the next day or so once that is recorded and produced. And if you have any questions that weren't resolved or additional ones, please reach out to Kathy McPhillips on our team, Kathy at marketingaiinstitute.com. She dropped her email in the chat, and we will connect you with some of the answers you need. So May, thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. And we will see everyone next year for 2023 webinars.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, May.